Hello and welcome to today's video. This is my February wrap up, all the books I read in February. We're going to go through them, talk about them. I'll let you know my thoughts, my feelings, what I rated them, and I'll also give you a few statistics to start with. So let's go through a few statistics. In February I read a total of 10 books, which was 3,384 pages, which isn't bad by any means, but it is a bit below my average. But yeah, February has less days, so I feel like overall it probably evens out. So yeah, I read 5 books physically, 1 book completely audio, 2 books as ebooks, and then 2 books as mixed media, which can basically mean any mixture of them, but for me this normally means I've read it as an audiobook and a physical book at the same time. All of the books that I read this month were first time reads, none of them were rereads, 6 were part of series, and 4 of them were standalones. The different genres that I read this month were fantasy, contemporary, non-fiction, classic and mythology. I gave it 3 5 stars, 1 4.5 star, 4 4 stars and 2 3 stars. So overall a pretty decent month of reading. And out of the books that I read, 4 of them were adult, 5 of them were new adult and 1 of them was children's. So yeah, I think those are all of the like important or interesting statistics, so let's just get to them. So there are only actually 9 books here, and when I was physically reading these books I only actually owned 8, but I'm planning on acquiring the 2 that I read as ebooks physically because I really enjoyed them. I've managed to get one of them, still waiting to get the other. So yeah. First book that I read of the month was A Shadow in the Ember, and I was really pleasantly surprised with this. I ended up giving it 5 stars. This is kind of like a spin-off series of From Blood and Ash, and this takes place like hundreds of years before that series basically, and it follows some of the lineage of the same main characters. So I think 2 of our main characters in here are grandparents to the main character that we see in the From Blood and Ash series. That doesn't technically make sense in terms of age, but this is fantasy, so they have longer than mortal lifespans. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was really pleasantly surprised. I was worried I wasn't going to enjoy it. I tried to read the audiobook of this not long after finishing the 3rd From Blood and Ash book, and it sounded so alike that I couldn't like split them up as different series in my head. So I put it down, and I think about 3 months later I've tried to pick this back up again, and I've really enjoyed it. I flew through it, I had a great time, and it was a really interesting story. I think I'm actually more interested in this story and what's going on than I am the From Blood and Ash, I think. Maybe. I mean, don't hold me to that, but right now I definitely want to pick up the 2nd book of this more. So yeah. Then next in the month I picked up Bingo Love, the Jackpot edition. So this is just slightly longer than the original edition, and yeah, I'd been eyeing this up for a while. I'd had it on a few different websites, and then randomly I searched for it on Vinted and someone was selling it for like 1/3 of the price that I could find it anywhere else. I think they were selling it for about £8-9, so I snatched that up very quickly. And yeah, I read it almost straight away. It was so good, it was so lovely. Again, gave it 5 stars. It was such a great story, and it was very realistic. Like, I don't know, like, there's not really much to say, but it's a story of basically 2 grandmas who've loved each other their entire lives, but due to like how things were when they were growing up, they didn't get together until they were much older, and that's the story that we actually hear. So on the back it says, take a trip through time with Hazel Johnson and Mary McRae as they fall in love at church bingo in 1963, break up because of pressure from their families, and reunite nearly 50 years later. And yeah, it was just a great time. I read it in one sitting. I had so much fun with it, and I thought it was a really lovely graphic novel. Then I read Fortuna Sworn. This is one of them that I read as an ebook, but I have now picked up the physical book for, and I read this on Scribd. All of the ebooks are available on Scribd, so that is how I read it. And I gave this 4.5 stars. I had a fun time, I had a good time, and because it was the first book in the series, I felt like all of the character introductions and trying to figure out where everyone was and imagine this world, it was all done really well. I really had a fun time. I enjoyed our main character's perspective. I found it a bit annoying at times, but everyone enjoyed it. And I enjoyed figuring out who all of the different characters were as well. And right at the very end of this book, something happened that I really didn't see coming and I didn't expect. So because of that, 4.5 stars. But then the second book that I read like as an ebook was actually book 2 of that series, which is called Restless Slumber. In the end I gave this 4 stars. It was still good, I still had a good time, but it was quite repetitive. Things happened that didn't quite make sense. I mean, I'm struggling because I read these really close together, and I am almost finished book 3, so I'm struggling exactly to remember what happened in which book. But I just didn't find myself really wanting to pick it up, and there really wasn't a lot that happened in it. Everything that happened, from what I can remember, wasn't really helping towards the main plot. I had fun. I enjoyed some of the newer characters that we got to see more of, and I enjoyed learning things about different characters. It just didn't feel as strong as book 1, and that was just a bit disappointing. Then I picked up The Hormone Diaries, The Bloody Truth About Our Period. This is the non-fiction book that I read this month, and this is by Hannah Witten, who does have a YouTube channel that I watch quite a lot. And I thought that this would be really interesting and really decent to read. I have officially given this a 4 star. I thought it was really decent. For me, as like an actual adult who I feel like is quite well informed about my own body and doesn't, like at this age, feel any embarrassment or anything like that towards my body and my period, I didn't find this particularly great. Like in my actual like reading journal, I have put like it was probably only 3 stars for me, but I do feel like this is really good, and it would be really good for like teenagers now. I think if I'd had this as a teenager, which I did actually do a whole video on, I will link it up above over here somewhere. It'll be linked up here. I did books that I'd give my teenage self. I do think it would be amazing. I think for teenagers it could be a really good resource. As an adult, I didn't feel like it was necessary, but that's just from my own perspective. I'm not saying that no adults would find this helpful. I'm sure there's plenty of adults who would find this really helpful. Just, yeah. I didn't learn anything, and I expected to. As simple as that, really. And then another 5 stars goes to Legends and Lattes. I did an entire reading vlog on this one. I had such a fun weekend. I put a weekend aside to just be cozy, sit down and read this. And again, I vlogged it all, so I will once again link it up here. Yeah, I love this book. I really feel like I enjoyed it. I have looked at other cozy fantasy, and there's none that have really shouted out to me, so I'm really looking forward to, there's another book coming out by this author in this same world called Bone Dust and Bookshops or something like that. So I'm looking forward to that. But if you have any like cozy fantasy recommendations that are more similar to this, then like, you know, I feel like I need at least this amount of plot, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Like this was kind of like the minimum amount of plot that I feel like I could have and still like love this much. So yeah, if you do have any recommendations, do let me know. But yeah, I had a great time with this. I loved our characters, I loved all of them like together and the different things, and although it was cozy and we were just having a fun time, there were problems that arose and they did get fixed. Yeah, I would recommend it. I don't need to talk about it a lot because I'm sure everyone has heard of this now. I'm quite late to the Legends and Lattes like train and everything, but I 100% understand the hype and I 100% get behind it. Like, I had so much fun. So yeah. Then I read Pride and Prejudice. This is for part of a reading project that I'm working on, which you'll hopefully see within the next couple of weeks. I'm reading it for a specific purpose. I gave this 3 stars, and honestly it was quite a generous 3 stars. I hated everyone. I hated the story. I hated how everyone acted. I really didn't like a lot about it, but the writing was really good. It was really easy to read, even though I wasn't really enjoying it and I was just getting annoyed by a lot of it. I mainly listened to this via audio, just like put it on and like do things and listen, and the writing itself was really good. It was really easy to follow and I had a decent time with that. So I am still interested in picking up more of like Jane Austen's books. This one in particular I just found really infuriating. Yeah, like I'll go into my full thoughts in the vlog that will be coming out with this in, but essentially none of the characters were likeable, none of them did decent things, none of them acted as like decent humans, and I didn't find any of the like love stories, love interests like viable, or like they didn't convince me that they were real at all. So yeah, it just wasn't the best time. I didn't have a bad time, like it was easy to put on and listen along, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, but none of it was actually good in terms of characters and plot. And I feel like it doesn't age well either. Like a lot of the things that happen in this, it's like, and like I understand this was a different time, but I couldn't get behind it. It wasn't something that I could personally do, but I don't read a lot of like historical fiction stuff, so it doesn't surprise me that that's the case. Then I read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This is a bind-up edition. I have only read the first book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I had a fun time. Again, I gave it 3 stars. I found Alice to be quite a crap main character, very annoying. Yeah, I expected to love this and was very disappointed. The world was interesting, the world was good, we didn't really explore the world. All we really did was spend a lot of time in Alice's head, Alice being rude to people, Alice like just not following along with like, this is right, this is wrong, you know. You've just mentioned to one small animal that your cat would like to eat them, maybe don't continue doing it to the rest of the small animals, as you've already seen one animal's reaction. Like just stuff like that, which was just very stupid. And because this is a children's book, like I can't imagine rating it higher than a 3 stars, because I personally wouldn't give this to a child. So there's that. And then I think I'm going to do these last 2 together because I read them pretty much back to back and I gave them both 4 stars, and these are Lore Olympus Volume 2 and Volume 3. I've read these over the last few days. These are like my last reads of the month. And I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. So much so that when I finished Volume 3, the next day I downloaded Webtoon on my phone and read the next 100 episodes of this. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to figure out. I really like the characters. I really like where it's heading. And I like that it, although it's very nice and cozy and cute, it does also deal with like darker, not so nice topics in a really decent way and a very healthy way. Or at least from what I've read and what I've interpreted from it. And it very much does remind me kind of like Heartstopper in that way. Obviously this is all like mythology based and like fantasy is a broader thing. It's not contemporary like Heartstopper, but the way it deals with heavier issues really does remind me of that. And I really had a great time reading both of these. So those were all the books that I read during February. I had a really great time. I had a really great reading month overall. It didn't feel like that as I was reading, to be honest. The couple of 3 stars that were back to back took me a long time to read compared to everything else. So it definitely didn't feel amazing, but looking back I can see that it was a really decent reading month. But even though February is only 28 days long, it seems to have taken a lot longer to get through all this. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Please do give it a like if you liked it, subscribe down below if you'd like to see more content like this, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.